We play and call it work.
Hey everybody, Matthew here from AnyWargaming.com, and welcome to this week's Sit and Talk show where we answer your questions. You ask us questions. I don't know why I'm mumbling through this. You ask questions, we answer them. It's my turn this week, which means I've got a bunch of questions here that you guys left for me last week, which I will do my best to answer in this 1 hour time slot that I have. And next week will be Josh and Colin. So you can ask them questions by leaving a comment in the comments below, whether you're on YouTube or our website. You can just leave them right there and we'll do our best to answer them. So what I'm going to be doing this time is I've just noticed that if I just read them off in order, it goes from newest to oldest, which means the sooner you are to put in comments, the less likely you are to actually get an answer. So first thing I'm going to do is, I'll start at the top, but I have a pencil here, so I'm going to cross off the ones that I did, and then I'll flip through the pages, and I'll just kind of have a pseudo-random order to the questions. But I will answer the most recent question first. It just seems fitting because it's at the top of the thing. And then we'll just go through it. So around whenever we hit an hour or get through all the questions, that's how long the show will be. So let's just dive it right in. Voldus the Boldest says, hey Matt, love the last few campaigns. Well, thank you. We just actually started filming today, which I'm filming this on Wednesday, the new Hunting the Fallen Dark Angel campaign, which hopefully will be out next week, maybe the week after. But it was awesome. We did 2 missions. It was great. Anyway, if you know much about their rules, what do you think the Grey Knights could use to make them a better force in 9th? Maybe a full 3-wound smite, or double objective secured, or maybe like a warlord trait that is an auto-pass psychic power. Something to help them out since they are so elite and not much better than any other Marine. Their template is good and really fun to play. I just feel like they need something to make them stronger in the current edition whenever their codex drops. Well, see, that's the problem with the codex creep, right? It's like if you make everything else stronger, then older codexes also all of a sudden aren't stronger. And so then what you got to do is, well, let's take them and let's make them even stronger. And then you just keep going and going and going. So the Grey Knights are in a weird spot right now. It's funny that you should ask this question because I just recently thought, we haven't had Grey Knights on our channel in a very long time. Nobody here has really even talked about playing them, let alone shown an interest. And so that kind of made me want to try them out. But I haven't had a chance to even start to look at them. And especially because they're an older codex, it'd probably just be a bummer to try to actually make them work. So I don't actually know anything about their current rules, except I've played against them a ton over the past 10 years, but I don't know exactly where they stand and everything. So I have no answer as to how to make them better. It's more just like a lot of the Space Marine stuff, and I think Space Marines are fine. I think their rules are fine, maybe a little overpowered in certain areas, but I guess because everything escalated, now if you want to make special Space Marines like Grey Knights, then what do you do? What do you do? I make them all Psychers is already a good start. You don't have to make them stronger than regular Space Marines. You have to remember, Grey Knights are not necessarily individually stronger than Space Marines. They're not Custodes. They're just pure. They don't, and not, to this day, as far as I know, none of them have fallen to chaos. So just kind of lean into that. Give them the regular Space Marine stats, and then make them all Psychers, Brotherhood of Psyker. You can give them basic smites, good smites, it doesn't matter, because as long as the points reflect what it is they're doing, they don't have to be super elite. Like, technically, Space Marine armies should be elite. When you read in the lore, 20 Space Marines arriving at a planet with millions of Imperial Guard can change the course of the entire battle. So Space Marines are elite. So we always refer to like Space Marines as normal, and then like Custodes are elite, or Imperial Knights are elite. And of course they are. But Space Marines are already supposed to be the elite. So just keep the stats of the Space Marines, and then add on all the cool Grey Knight stuff, which is mainly making them all Psychers. And don't give them anti-chaos rules, because that's lame, and that made them not really fun to play against demons for a little while, because no demon player wanted to play against you because you had a built-in huge advantage over them. So stay away from that. Throw a stratagem or two in there, sure, whatever, but they should be effective against anybody they want to fight. So those are my thoughts, just off the top of my head. So scratch that one off. Gonna flip through here, just boom. Sam B. Hello, Matt. I was wondering what your take, both as a player and the boss, is on the focus of Games Workshop games over other tabletop games for the studio. Please do not take as a desire for you to stop what you already do. Acknowledging that the business requires what's popular to sell the show to viewers, I was wondering what constraints are in place that merit Mini Wargaming's focus, as your quality is top-notch. Is there more to this besides disinterest or limited models available? like avoidance of Battlefleet Gothic, X-Wing, or ship or plane or historicals? If the latter, can you see Mini Wargaming ever engaging with other content creators to have guests bring games for the staff to play battle reports in? I'd certainly be tempted, more than I am, if I knew there was a series in the vault of Cullen or Luca being subjected to yourself, Steve, and other games, Kings of War, Conflict 47, etc. Thank you for your consideration in keeping your staff safe and the content you produce. I've addressed this in a lot of sit and talks, but I'll give you the basic rundown. Yeah, there's two main considerations for what we cover. One is popularity, and two is how much we like it. So if a game is somewhat popular but nobody likes it, then it's not going to be played. Now, having said that, over the years, we have actually covered a lot of games. Recently, it's been more Games Workshop, or mostly Games Workshop. We have some other stuff in the works and coming up as well. It just comes down to how small this market actually really is. And then we are an aftermarket of sorts. We're a media outlet, not news, we're a media outlet covering an already small market. And so if you go after games that are not the biggest, then you're taking a small piece of an even smaller market. So it really comes down to, if you want to grow a YouTube channel, you most likely, if your only source of revenue and growth is getting people to watch your videos and, let's say, pay for a subscription or sub to you on Patreon or something like that. If that's your only source of income, and then maybe some advertising revenue, you have to go for what's going to get you the most people interested. In larger markets, you can go for smaller things. In a sense, this is an example of going for a smaller thing in a larger market. There's a larger market of nerd gaming, which is a subset of the market of gaming, which is a subset of the market of entertainment, which is probably where that's roughly the largest part of the market. So we keep drilling down. And that's a good way to build a small business, is to drill down until you still have enough of a customer base to make money, but it's also small enough to not have as much competition, because people with tons of resources aren't interested in going after that. And so they'll go after the bigger stuff. So it leaves smaller businesses like us to go after the smaller stuff. So that's always going to be a constraint. And 40K, obviously Warhammer 40K and Age of Sigmar are just leaps and bounds ahead of a lot of the other games. Now you might disagree, you might think, well, no, I think Star Wars X-Wing is actually more popular, or I think this. When it comes to viewership on YouTube, like if you look at any other channel, then if it's a channel that's doing well, most likely they're covering 40K. And if it's a channel that does a lot of different stuff, look at their views, and I'm almost guaranteed that the ones about 40K are where they get most of their views. And so we're kind of stuck with that. We like 40K, we love 40K, and we love Age of Sigmar. Would I love to be able to play whatever game I want and be able to have the same amount of viewership and vault members? Absolutely. I would choose that in a heartbeat. You wouldn't see as much 40K in Age of Sigmar, not because they're not good games, but because we like variety. We want to play other stuff as well. So that's the main thing. It's how popular it is, and then the second thing, of course, is how much we like it. And that's what we have to gauge it on. So, and in the end, our goal is to feed our families, and so that has to be our primary responsibility. And as much as we'd love to support these smaller gamers or gaming companies, that's hard to do unless they pay us a good amount of money to make the videos, to make up for the fact that we're not going to make money from the viewership. Now, if you had a different business model where, let's say, your goal wasn't so much to get people to sign up for a vault or a patron or something like that. Let's say your goal was more just to help advertise. I don't know. It just comes down to the same thing. Like let's say it's a company, a smaller company that wants to really grow their market. Well, they should start their own YouTube channel is really what it comes down to. But they could pay out to a third party and pay them on a regular basis to make content for them, and that could make up for the fact that that company is not going to be able to make money from advertising revenue as much, and all the other stuff too. So it's hard. I wish we could cover more games. I really do. And everybody here wishes we could too. And that's, once again, not a knock at Games Workshop. Games Workshop provides fantastic gaming experiences. It's just wanting variety. So hopefully that answers your question. But it's kind of where we're at right now. Oh, dropping down to the last question. Matty Boy, Matt Dog, Matt Zilla says, Jake Dog. How much would 1 pound of Tyranid Cutlass cost on Terra in the 41st Millennium? 1 pound of Tyranid cutlets. Okay, well, we're making the assumption first off that Tyranids are edible to human beings. The second question is, how how delicious are they? See, I think because of the limited availability of getting Tyranid, because Tyranids are far away from Terra, right? And so in my mind, it's going to be probably an exotic food, not just because of its exotic nature, but because of its rarity, which means some rich person is going to pretend to like them long enough to actually start liking them. And the nice thing about Tyranid meat is it's probably not going to give you any problems with like chaos. I don't think there's no like warp taint on it. Now you might still get a knock on your door from the Inquisition wondering why you're eating Xenos meat. But what counts as Xenos meat? Like if it was a cow from a different planet, is that a Xenos cow? So obviously you can grow animals of all sorts on these different planets. Are you only allowed to eat animals that originated from Terra? Because they probably have no idea what those are anymore, given how Terra is no longer really able to sustain life like it used to. So I would assume it would be very expensive and that it would be an acquired taste, unless it just happened to be like super tasty. Like maybe we're missing out here not eating termagant. Termagant stew and Carnifex curry and Toxicrene. So you gotta watch out for those ones, but you can eat animals that are poisonous as long as you remove the poison stuff. So like Toxicrene tacos, I don't know, you have all sorts of stuff. But I doubt it would be available en masse because of how far you are from Tyranid fleets. And also just because, obviously you have to go into the danger zones of places where there's been Tyranids and they've been beaten, obviously. So yeah, very, very expensive. I don't have a dollar amount for you because I don't even know exactly what the currency on Terra is, because I know there's different currency systems in the 41st millennium and 42nd millennium. So that's that one. It's an interesting thought experiment though, and I'm being serious. Like if you just kind of, you weigh all the different things that it could be about. Zafire, hey Matt, was wondering if you were going to do a Drukhari Codex review. Been waiting for it since the announcement. Thanks for your work and keep it up. We weren't able to, just timing and everything. That's why we posted the one from Scary from Scarredcast. So that was kind of our substitute. We asked for his permission and we did that. And then he came in and played some Dark Eldar games. I don't know if the first one's already been posted. I think it was posted on Monday. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was posted last Monday. The Dark Eldar versus My Sisters. Yeah, that was definitely posted. So you can see that. So no, we don't plan on doing a full review on it, unfortunately. I was off for 2 weeks because all 4 of my kids' classes had COVID cases, and so I had to stay home in quarantine. We've had just a series of, it's been hard to keep up with content with all the COVID stuff going on. So that just wasn't available. We just weren't able to do it. I apologize. I wish we could do them all. Axis 762. Hey Matthew, we're wondering about your thoughts about the current Drukhari Venom controversy. Venoms are 65 points base, come equipped with a splinter cannon, a twin splinter rifle, and blade vanes. One can upgrade the twin splinter rifle to another splinter cannon. The Codex says that a splinter cannon for a Venom is 10 points. So is the equipped splinter cannon free and pay for the upgrade, or would one have to pay for both? Are you team 75 points or 85? Oh, golly. I haven't currently played with any of the new codexes. I played Sisters and then Tyranids before that, and they don't use that new structure as much. That's not true. There was the new book. I use Battlescribe for all my stuff. So what does Battlescribe say? I don't have my iPad here, so I don't know the answer to that. Typically, the points value it gives you is what it comes with stock, and then you pay for whatever you're adding on. So that's what I would think off the top of my head. So I guess I'm team 75 points, but that's with not having everything in front of me. Okay. XXM60E4XX. Hello, fellow Matthew. Oh, so your name is Matthew. I have a question regarding every narrative campaign mini wargaming has ever done. Don't worry, it's not that complicated. Would you ever be cool with posting a timeline of the campaigns? Excuse me. And if, how they're all interconnected one with another. I'm specifically talking about 40K because of the breadth and amount of content you've made over the years. Up to Wars on Apothis, I had a pretty good idea about how they lined up, but after that, I just completely lost track. I also know that at one point you had a wiki made, but that seems pretty dead. It is. It hasn't. People haven't been updating it for a while, and we haven't updated it at all. Would you ever consider doing another one or updating the old wiki? Well, I'd want to update the old wiki because it's already there with a lot of information. There was a time when I had this grand vision that all of the narrative campaigns, at least that I was creating, kind of fell into the same storyline and they would interact a lot. And they do. I pull cameos from one to the other. But your question assumes that I have a timeline. and I don't really. I purposely keep it vague so that I can kind of timey-wimey however I want. Then there are some things that occurred, some spoilers here. There was a jump forward in time in one of the campaigns, and then a jump back in another one to kind of bring us there. So yeah, right now my grand MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe, mini Wargaming Cinematic Universe, we started with the Hungry Nexus. I'm going to do a few of these smaller ones and then wrap it up with another one. I'm going to do it in smaller chunks, have a few narrative campaigns kind of relate to each other. But there's not really a timeline for all of them. Like obviously the Death Watch ones, if you watch those in order, then they're one after another, except for the one that goes forward in time and then comes back in time. So I don't really have that. I'd love for people to update the wiki, but once again, because we're in a smaller market, you don't have as many people that want to put in that time, and I totally get it. It's free labor for a wiki, but and it's our narrative campaigns are all over the place, and so I can see why people wouldn't bother putting the time into trying to figure out all the interconnections to them, because there's not always interconnections too. So I'd love for that to happen. Don't have the resources to do it right now, but maybe one day. Dagweir01. Hey Matt, just want to say I really enjoy all the Age of Sigmar content. My question for you is, have you thought about trying out Bone Reapers? Since I remember a long time ago you played Tomb Kings. When the Bone Reapers first came out, I wanted to play them, but Luca wanted to play them even more, so I let him do it. And because he's played them a lot, I would rather choose something else that hasn't been shown a lot, just for variety. So no. But other than that, I probably would play Bone Reapers because they were kind of that. They're the spiritual successor to Tomb Kings. I know they're not actually story-wise really anything to do with the Tomb Kings except they're undead. Metal Michael. Hello, Matt. In a post-COVID-19 world, are you ever planning on having guests again? Yeah, definitely. Maybe not a weekly thing like Mini Wargaming used to do, but a few games to find new personalities out there for the channel. While I love the content and the team, it would be neat if every once in a while to have a content creator show. Yeah, totally. We want to have guests again. I don't know exactly how it'll look. It definitely won't be just wishy-washy like we used to do, where it's like, hey, can you come in? Great, come on in. It would probably be like more in blocks, like these 2 weeks are for guests. There might be events that we would host events here, and then you'd play in events and also play in some battle reports. So there's a lot of different ideas going around that, but we're not really putting a lot of thought into it because it's going to be a little while before we actually can really, like technically we can have guests now, but it just opens up so much more problems and complications that it's just not a good idea. And so, yeah, probably next year would be the time, like 2022 will be when we can start considering how we're going to reopen that aspect of the business. But yeah, I definitely want to have guests in again. I'm missing that. All right. Ben Engstad. Engstad? I'm sorry if I butchered that. Are there any more plans to do more Necromunda content? No plans, but we got a lot of Necromunda stuff, and I like the game, so it's definitely something that's on the table to happen again. Okay. Let's go back to the first page. Caiaphas Blackadder. Hey Matt, just been watching the Necromunda videos you did with Steve. Really enjoy them, and hopefully you will get to do a full campaign soon. Keep up the great work, both yourself and the rest of the team. Oh, 2 people talking about Necromunda, and I just happen to randomly choose them. Maybe I do need to do it soon. Axiomatic Alex. Hey Matt, after listening to this video, the Luca and Steve combo show, and the Josh and Colin episodes, I really like the format of 2 people and slightly longer episodes. Any chance of it possibly becoming a more regular thing? Rotate everyone around? I think it brings some good discussion in. Also loving a video/audio series that focuses more on tabletop/hobby than lore. Anyways, time for an actual question. If you were running a custom Fallen Sisters of Battle army, what unit would you assign to each of the 5, 4 Chaos Gods? So you're talking like Sisters of Battle that felt like chaos. Oh golly. That seems unlikely, but sure. Obviously Repentia are Khorne. Retributors would be Slaanesh, because then I can shoot them twice, if they were using those rules. Tzeentch is a tough one because we deny, Sisters of Battle deny they don't cast powers. So let's come back to that one. What about Nurgle? Well, that would be like the Doctor, the Hospitaller, obviously. Tzeentch, so forget the psychic aspect of Tzeentch. Think about the kind of the political manipulative part. And that obviously is a little more difficult to pick a unit for that. Yeah, I'm not sure. Zine should be the hard one. Because if there was a Psyker sister, that'd be easy. You know, that's just the librarian or whatever. Even though I know Psychers are in all of them except for Corn. So yeah, that's how I would divvy it up. Anyways, thanks for the awesome content. I'm still waiting on Dave versus Matt, Chaos versus Nids Onslaught Plus game. Also, your idea of having the combo shows, that's not a bad idea. The only complication I could see is we kind of fit these in whenever we can. Like I filmed today and happen to have a couple hours, so this is when I'm filming when I sit and talk. So we're told this is your week for sit and talk, but you kind of fit it in wherever you can. So if you have two people, it becomes harder to fit it in. So, but who knows? We might make that more of a thing. Random switch. GBC343, hi Matt, I hope you are well. I am, thank you. Just wondering if you had any good reading recommendations, as I find you have very good taste in various Games Workshop novels. Well, thank you. Also, of the new releases that have been announced, any of that you are excited for. Also, given your opinions in the past, I think you'll probably like the ending of BR Techless Narrative, LOL. I need to read that. I haven't had a chance to look at that. I haven't read a lot of novels recently. Because we just hit a spot in my Dungeons and Dragons campaign where I plan ahead, almost like module by module kind of thing. And we hit the end of a module, and so I had a lot of work to do. So I've been reading a lot of source books, like tons of stuff. And so not so much novels. The last novel I read, which I may have already talked about, was the Belisarius Call novel and then The Spear of the Emperor. And they were really good. And they're Space Marine novels. And I say that, because I don't hate Space Marines. I just usually thought they were boring. But those two novels made me really like Space Marines. So if I didn't mention those already, I would definitely give them top grades. Both the Belisarius Call, The Great Work, and then the other one is The Spear of the Emperor. Or the Emperor's Spear. I can't remember. It's one of those two. And those were really, really good. But those are really the last novels that I've delved into. I need to get back into reading. Like, I'm reading lots. It's just more, but like source books for Dungeons and Dragons or stuff for like creating the new narrative campaign for Hunting the Fallen. So I'm doing a lot of reading on wikis and reading in codexes and that kind of stuff. So not novels so much. Okay. Let's randomly, here's a page I haven't answered any questions on. Let's say, Inrium, hey Matthew, do you ever have any plans to play some of the other Games Workshop games in the future? Blood Bowl was so awesome. How about a Space Alt campaign? Gorka Morka was fun as well. I've been recently having a hankering to play Gorka Morka, so that one's on top of my list for me. I can't guarantee we're going to do it, but I want to. Blood Bowl I'm not interested in. I get super competitive in it, and I just need to stay away from it because I just get angry. But the other guys like Blood Bowl, so it's a possibility as well. We need to get ahead. We've been having so many sicknesses or stay at home because of COVID that we're barely keeping on top of our regular content. So I'm hoping over the next few weeks we can just kind of like nose to the grindstone, get tons of content done, and that all of a sudden is like, okay, we got some breathing space. What would we like to do? And that's where things like that would come in. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to do that. But COVID's making it hard, I will admit. Could be between not being able to have guests to help us to get more content done faster. Because realize if we have guests, we can get twice as much stuff done, right? Because we have 3 guests come in, they can film with 3 content producers. Let's say 4 guests with 4 content producers, you get 4 battle reports done. Or those 4 content producers fight against each other and only get 2 done. So there's a big difference there. So we can't have guests really. And on top of that, as soon as there's a sniffle, you stay home, or one of the kids' classes has COVID, I've got to stay home and quarantine for a couple of weeks, or that kind of, like we lost a couple of days last week when one of his kids had just a cough and he had to go get a test, and because that's the rules for school and all that, and he had to stay home for a couple of days. It's just things like that all over the place. It's making it very difficult. So we're doing okay, but it's just like we're barely keeping up. That's basically what it is. Mayabi, hi Matthew. Love what you do and love what you and your team do. Have you ever thought about expanding your merch line through drop shipping? I would love a snapback cap, a greater variety of shirts, or a mini wargaming mug. I'm sure you've thought about it, but wanted to throw my voice out there, showcasing demand. Yeah, actually, it's something that we need to refocus on. We focused on it for a little while, got a bunch of merch in there, but it needs to be something that you're constantly updating, giving people new stuff to buy. Interesting things, seasonal things, maybe things specific to narrative campaigns or new releases. We need to get on that. It's just, once again, it kind of came back to the whole, so busy. Like I'm filming more, when I'm here, I'm filming more days of the week than I used to. And so I used to have more time to do other stuff. But I'm not complaining that I have to do it. It's just more like, it does have that kind of consequence. Okay. Tabe 8. Matt, I'm a lifetime Vault member, purchased in 2017. Well, thank you. I understand your position as a business owner. I own a Thai restaurant in Manhattan. Free meal if you or any other Mini Wargaming employees are ever in town. For Thai food? Oh, that sounds great. I find that my enjoyment of your channel has diminished solely because I very much dislike 9th edition. Well, that's fair enough. I understand I'm in the minority on that opinion. Well, not necessarily. People are going to like editions. I don't think you're in the minority. There's a lot of people that like 9th edition. But of course, if you come to a place where people are watching it, yeah, you're going to find people who like it. Otherwise, they won't be watching it. I have 2 questions for you. 1, what can I do as a lifetime Vault member to further support your recent Horus Heresy content? I love everything about Horus Heresy, and if I had control of the world, your channel would play that game exclusively. In all honesty, I feel a bit disempowered as a lifetime Vault member since I can no longer vote with my wallet. You can't just cancel your Vault membership and then say, hey, once you do more Horus Heresy, I'll sign back up. I totally get it. I totally get it. That's a fantastic question. And it's one that we've considered many times. Like, should we have different memberships for different games? So, do you just want Age of Sigmar stuff? Then pay for this membership. The problem is, once again, coming back to the topic of being such a small business, it's hard to what's the word I'm looking for? Wow, my brain just went blank. It's hard to break up your membership into smaller groups. I don't know, there's a word. Tip of the tongue, right? And still remain profitable. Because what happens, like, if you get too, I need that word. It's really bothering me. With email newsletters, you would create subsets. No, there's another word. Segregate. Segregate is the word I'm looking for, not something, segregate. So if you segregate your audience into different groups like that, it has certain advantages, obviously. For example, marketing-wise, if you segregated your audience to Age of Sigmar stuff only, like they're only interested in Age of Sigmar, then when you want to talk about Age of Sigmar, you can send it to them. And if you want to talk about 40K, they don't get stuff they don't want to see. Because in a perfect world, you only get communicated things that you are interested in or would be interested in, right? And so if for example, if you get if you come on our site and you see there's 5 40K and 1 Age of Sigmar, you're like, ugh, they need more Age of Sigmar. But if you came on our site and all we posted was that 1 Age of Sigmar weekly, let's say, and then you'd be like, oh, they're posting weekly Age of Sigmar, cool. They might want more, but you're not going to be like, oh, I wish they would focus on it more than 40K. So there's that perception as well. So if you can segregate your audience, you can just kind of let them have the stuff they want and ignore the rest. But segregating has its disadvantages too, because then it's harder to market to them for things they may be interested in. It's harder to guess what they're interested in. It makes sense for larger companies and larger audiences to segregate it and do it that way, but it's hard for us. So we've always had that question, like, do we create a Patreon that if we make this much, we do Horus Heresy? It's like, well, what happens when we get bored of Horus Heresy, or a big change happens and it no longer makes sense to cover Horus Heresy? Does all that money go away? All that work we did to grow that Patreon, does it go away? Because we want to pay flexible, right? We don't want to have to play certain things, especially if if it's something like Horus Heresy where people aren't watching as much. It's different when it's something like 40K, right? You don't need to have a Patreon for that. That's just our main income. It's these side ones that are hard. So I don't have an easy answer for that. We haven't figured it out yet either. Just how to make that cost effective in a small market and be able to monetize it, let people pay for it. Like, you can go to an on-demand approach, right? But even then, it's like, well, why make content that hardly anybody's buying? We'll focus on making more content people are buying more of. So it just sucks. I get it. I get that it sucks that there's something you want covered. I still remember to this day, the first game I got into with Games Workshop games was Lord of the Rings. Back when it was still called Lord of the Rings, not the Hobbit strategy battle game. And I remember getting my first White Dwarf, and I open it up, and there's like 3 pages of Lord of the Rings. The rest is 40K and Warhammer Fantasy. And I was so disappointed. I'm like, I want more of my stuff. But it's not their popular thing, right? So you're not going to get it. You're going to get those 3 pages, and that's it. We do put up Horus Heresy battle reports, but not as much as we do 40K Age of Sigmar, because that represents its popularity. And so that's just the way it's going to be. And there's not really anything you can do about it, because there's not really anything we can do about it. We can't force it to be popular. Sure, if we played it more, it would naturally become slightly more popular, because I know we have an influence over popularity, but we don't have so much influence that we can make a game that was mildly popular, super popular, just by covering it a lot. It needs to couple with the fact that Games Workshop is supporting it more and that it actually is accepted by the community as well. So that's kind of where we're at. Number 2, when will you take the plunge and show off that beautiful Salamander's army in a Horus Heresy battle report? That custom Praetor model Lee made is awesome. It needs more airtime. I've been kind of itching to play some Horus Heresy, kind of, but just haven't had a chance to really wrap my head around it. So I don't know. I'm not quite sure. I'm sorry that that's not the answer you want to hear, but hopefully you kind of see kind of where I'm coming from with all that. The KT, hey Matt, hope the family is doing well. They are. Have you ever had issues with your better half over the hobby and owning a small business? Like not a lot of free time, paychecks not being as consistent as regular 9 to 5, and have you been able to get her into the hobby? The only issue I've had with her that I could really think of is that the complaint that the moment I found a hobby that finally she could buy me birthday gifts and Christmas gifts for, she's like, oh, now I could I'm excited because now I have something to buy him for birthday and Christmas. 3 months later, we started mini wargaming. And so it didn't make sense for her to buy them anymore because it all became business expenses. So that was her biggest complaint. Other than that, no, she's been very supportive. Holly is very supportive in this. And because it actually is basically a 9 to 5. We only come in Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, if that, sometimes like 9 to 4, 9 to 3, depends on the day. And getting her into the hobby, she's not so much interested in wargaming. She loves painting, not that we ever do that because we don't have time, but we played Dungeons & Dragons together. So she's a good support in that area. She loves Dungeons & Dragons. She played it as a teenager growing up, so it's something that she's passionate for. We went to Gen Con together. She's come to Adepticon. Like, she likes the stuff. She loves the gaming industry. She's just not interested in a competitive miniature war game. So I don't think that'll ever change, which is fine. Got Regireland or Regireland for Matthew. Might be a bit of the left field, but I remember hearing that the best fantasy writers are typically Mormons or Catholics. Do you believe it? And if so, why? Best of luck to the mini wargaming team. No, I don't believe that. Because there's no reason. There's no reason that they would be. I do know of some good writers who are Catholics or who are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Like Orson Scott Card is a member of the same church as me, and he writes fantastic sci-fi. Brandon Sanderson writes some awesome fantasy. I love his stuff. And he happens to be a member of the same church. But I don't think because he's a member, he's a better writer. I think he's a good writer because he's practiced and probably has some natural talent and maybe something to do with the writing courses he teaches too. So I don't think that they're linked. The only thing I can think of is that, at least in our church, they emphasize like higher learning and higher education. So maybe that could be a slight factor, but no, I don't think so. I think if you coincidentally know a bunch that are, I think it's just that. I think it's just a coincidence. Oops, left my pencil over there. I'm not. It's an interesting question though. I'm like not bothered by it or anything. I don't want you to think that. Let's go to Sklertic. Hi Matt. First off, I think you did a great job with the narrative Crusade campaign. Thank you. Except the game where Steve conceded after turn 1. Shame on him. Well, he was mostly dead, but still, yeah. And it has inspired my gaming group to write our own narrative campaign. My favorite campaign you ever did was the Spell Hunters. Yeah, I liked that one too. It was really well made and had many amazing scenarios. Are you planning something like that anytime soon? Something like that. Do you mean like a small group of characters having to overcome a bunch of things through a story? Or do you mean like Spell Hunters Campaign 2? Because I'm definitely not planning another Spell Hunters. When I say definitely not, I mean like it's not even on my mind. Not that I would never do it again. If you mean like campaigns with just a few characters, yeah, for sure. I'll always return to our Death Watch campaigns because they've always proven to do well. And we're overdue for another one. But I'd like to get a few others under my belt first before I do that. I much prefer stories where the Stormcast or Space Marines aren't the focus, as I find them to be very generic compared to the other races. Thanks in advance, and I hope you all have a good Easter. Okay, so you don't mean the Death Watch ones, obviously. So no plans for a Spell Hunters Season 2. But we'll see. Chase Leibenguth. In your experience, what would be the rough order of interest in battle reports for 40K versus Age of Sigmar, and Fantasy if you want to include that, versus Necromunda, versus Blood Bowl, versus other games like Hail Caesar, Pike and Shot? Well, obviously 40K is number one, but I'm going to continue with your question. When I look at big channels, sure, 40K seems supreme, but after that, especially when I look on smaller channels, the answer gets pretty murky fast. And even on big channels, there is no seemingly consistent order of preference over the others. You won't find an answer that way, mainly because it all kind of goes down to the long tail. You have, people know that if they play 40K, they can go online and find lots of channels to watch it, so naturally more people are going to go there. If you don't think anybody really shows the game that you play, there could be just as many 40K players as, let's say, Hail Caesar players. Let's say there's the same number, but nobody's making Hail Caesar video or battle reports, then most of those Hail Caesar players won't think to go online looking for it. And so when you cover out these small games, you kind of get that effect where they're all going to have roughly the same number of views, because it's all just low. It's basically that bottom number of views. Like when you're only getting a few thousand views on a video, it's like, well, what's the difference between 3,000 and 5,000 views? Like obviously it's 2,000 more, but statistically there's not much significant difference between them. So it's really hard to compare. Where you see the difference is when it's like consistently 40K getting more. Age of Sigmar does really well as well. Obviously not as good as 40K, although for us, it does very close, very similarly. So yeah. You guys are making me want to play other games, but man, I don't know. Even Horus Heresy doesn't get as many views and vault signups. Like we have a whole Horus Heresy narrative campaign. It doesn't have nearly as many views. Even Age of Sigmar campaigns don't do as well. So it's hard. It's hard to want to pour a lot of effort into things that are going to get half as many views or a quarter of as many vieys, and proportionately that much less vault members as well. So that's the tough part, right? Sir FF Fantolfin, the Red Raven. Hi, Matthew. What would you like to see changed or removed from Age of Sigmar in the almost certainly coming new edition? Would you like to see the double turn removed or just revoked or reworked? I don't know how certain it is anymore with COVID and the release schedule of things being kind of all janky. I thought it would be this summer, but I don't think so now. Maybe. I would assume it's going to be much later, if at all. And what would I change? I'd want the random turn mechanic. If it's not gone, it has to be seriously reworked. You got to make it, if somebody takes a double turn, there's got to be some serious reason to not want to. And that needs to be part of it. It can't just be, you get the double turn, well, if you take it now, then they might get a double turn against you later. It's like, yeah, but they'll be dead, so it doesn't matter. So yeah, it has to either, if it's not removed, then seriously reworked. I'd like to see endless spells be made a thing that you actually want to bring, and not just the army-specific ones or the wall, because nobody can mess with that. They're kind of in a weird spot. Like if they're army-specific ones, your army doesn't get affected by them, or only you can control them. That's not what I mean. I mean like the endless spell thing where you kind of set loose a power and you don't have control over it. I like that. But maybe rather than, if you're going to pay points for something and it takes up one of your spell casting slots, it's got to be really good, right? Which is why you see things like the Fire Slayers will bring their invocations, or magma invocations, and the Khorne players will sure as heck bring their what do you call those? The Wrath things. Their endless spell equivalent, because your opponent can't get rid of them. They can't use any of their abilities to dispel them because they're not endless spells. They'd only affect your opponent. They're usually pretty darn good too. And they're a little bit more reliable for getting them off. And you could use them in addition to all of your priestly powers, which, let's face it, are just spells, just rewritten and like that. It's kind of like the old edition of 40K having a difference between vehicles and monsters, even though they kind of became muddled with like the Grey Knights, the knight being a monstrous creature rather than a vehicle. So and now in the new edition, they're all kind of the same. Vehicles and monsters are the same. They just have different keywords. So like certain weapons won't affect them, but rules-wise, they now have their wound charts and they degrade. They kind of need to do that with like priestly stuff versus spells. They're basically all the same. Because maybe you shouldn't be able to unbind a priestly thing, but like you'll pay the points for the judgments of Khorne. That's what they're called, the judgments. Maybe I did say that. I don't remember. Because they'll do stuff for you. So either just do that to endless spells, get rid of the hole, your opponent can use them against you, or actually make them really interesting. Something's got to be done. So I'd like to see them reworked. The other big thing I'd like is a total rework of the ally system. I love what they did with Cities of Sigmar, and I think that's a good template to apply everywhere else. And in case you don't know, Cities of Sigmar, first off, having a lot of things in it, but the other part is 1 in every 4 can be a Stormcast Eternal. But in this city, 1 in every 4 can be a Caradron Overlord. In this city, 1 in every 4 can be a Sylvaneth. And then the new books that came out, now it's 1 in every 4 can be Daughters of Cain, 1 in every 4 can be Lumineth Realm Lords. Then there's the one, I just found out about this, I didn't know this existed until Josh just brought it in the game. The Caradron Overlords have one of their sub-factions that 1 in every 4 can be a Duerden. So you can bring Fire Slayers or Dispossessed as part of your army, and they gain the keyword. So it's not like the allies where it's like, yeah, you can spend 400 points in your 2,000 point army on allies, but they don't gain any of the benefits of this, and they rarely can interact with each other, rarely. Except maybe the Realm spell, or if they're a character who happens to be something that affects the same Grand Alliance as yours. And I find that kind of lame. It's ironic because, in 40K, there was all the soup problems where you could mix and match things too much, and that was an issue. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about kind of having more of a rigid system to it, but allowing to bring more in. So like the whole 1 in 4 thing just seems brilliant. It works a lot more with the order, I realize, but it could work in destruction as well. Obviously, orcs and ogres and goblins could be working together and gain some of each other's benefits. A little harder in death because those ones are always they're already kind of weird. But it could still work there. Chaos, obviously, it could easily work. That's not a problem. But you'd have to. It's not as simple as just say 1 in 4 and then they gain the keywords, because obviously that doesn't work for everything. So I'd like to see that. So I'd like to see a better ally system to encourage you to mix and match your armies more, and create really cool thematic armies. Because a fantasy setting, right? It's not like like in 40K, it's like Space Marines fight with Space Marines. Well, of course they'll fight with Imperial Guard, but there's not a lot of reasons to mix except rules reasons, but narrative-wise, like you could maybe do Tyranids and Genestealer cults, some of the Eldari stuff. There are things in there, but I don't know. It's just not as fantasy settings have more of a reason to mix and match, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I'd like to see that. Those are the big changes I'd like to see to Age of Sigmar to make them even more interesting, because I enjoy that so much. I really enjoy that aspect of. That's why I love Cities of Sigmar so much, is because of the really cool mixing and matching idea behind them. Justin Young. Oh wait, no. This is a response to Steve. Okay, that's fine. I think you are a good man. Yeah, you're a good man, Steve. That's not a comment to me. All right, so these pages are done because those are responses to everybody else's. Oh, here's one that goes over a page. Oh, never mind. Those ones are done. I'm actually getting through these. Oh, here's a page I haven't even touched. Stealth Zombie. Hello, Matthew. Firstly, I would like to say thank you for producing amazing content. Well, thank you for being a viewer of our content. I play so many different tabletop games and enjoy watching battle reports from almost every game system. What draws me to mini wargaming is the personalities rather than the game systems being played. Yeah, big piece of business advice if you ever want to start a channel. Personality is more important than anything else. You can get perfect audio, good lighting, all that stuff is important. Good looking miniatures, getting your rules right, making interesting games, have good matchups, play good narratives, play good competitive, having all that kind of things, playing the right games, all those are important. But if you have a super boring personality, who's your camera personality, then a lot of that's, unless they're like something else, like for example, they're one of the best 40K players out there, then you can get away with less personality because then it's going to draw on people because of how good they are at that. But even then, I don't think that's going to draw on as much as a good personality, because I think most people aren't as interested in the competitive stuff as we think. You have to ignore what you see online because that's where the competitive people go. So if you go and hang out with competitive people, you're like, oh, I guess everybody's competitive. It's like, no, that's just where they happen to go. So I think the majority of the market is not competitive, and so personality is very important. So I agree, that's kind of the big thing. No matter what happens, we have to remember, hire good personalities. Everything else is secondary, but still important. Over the years, you have tried many other game systems, but never seemed to stick with them for more than a handful of battle reports. Do you feel that you give those enough time to gain popularity and followers? I think there's so much untapped potential for things like Kill Team, Warcry, and a vast number of small. No, we don't. We don't give them enough time to really be able to gauge. That is something I like, and this is why I'm saying we need to get ahead with our current schedule so we have time to give them that proper coverage. Because there is that too, right? You do need time to build up. Like if we were to say, let's say we wanted to cover exclusively Blood Bowl, well, the first season would be fine. We'd get the people currently interested and some others. But if we did it for a long time, more and more of the Blood Bowl community would come to know that they come to Mini Wargaming to watch Blood Bowl content, right? And so you would get more. There is still going to be a ceiling, though, of how much you're really going to grow in that. And I know it's going to be less than 40K, but that doesn't mean we don't do it. So it's a good point. So if it's something worth sticking around for, that's the hard thing, right? A lot of these smaller games, if you play them 20 times, then you've kind of played it all. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to continue wanting to play it. Remember, you have a different experience than we do, usually. Your experience is to play once every month, maybe if you're lucky, every week. We're playing multiple times a week. So in one gaming year for us, we can experience what you experience in a decade. No joke, or maybe a few years. And so it's a kind of a time crunch, right? Like if in 1 week I play 4 games of 40K, and you normally play once every 2 weeks, well, that's the same as your experience over the course of 2 months. So where you see us getting tired of something quickly, it's like, well, you know, it's all compacted. So that's the hard part, right? So that's so much. I really wish that this market was big enough that we could do this kind of stuff, because I've always dreamed of that. Like, I don't care so much that we have tons and tons of content producers. That would be cool too. But it's more just like I wish we could have a wider margin of games that we cover. So I don't know, the more I've been thinking about this, the more I'm wondering if I should just push it anyways. But I worry what that would do to the business in the long run, right? All right. Mr. Socks, not a question. Just want to let you guys know I love the sit and talk. I loved the sit and talk. Oh, the one they did. They're one of my favorite things on the channel, both in the paired format and the individual. And they're great to listen to while painting. Have a great day. Well, thank you, Mr. Socks. We like doing them. How's Am3? Hello, Matt. I love on how the Hungry Nexus turned out. The crusade I started up here in Alaska is going well. The crusade system is so good, and I can't wait for more books to come out to make it better. We are several games in, and the group has gone from 3 to 6. Word of mouth traveled, and others have jumped into 40K, and that has been fun. Armies involved are Space Wolves, Blood Angels, Gene Stealer, Bugs, Necrons, Harlequins, Sisters of Battle. That's a good gambit. I set up a small sector with the Gene Stealers waking up the Necrons on the Tomb World just as they were successful in summoning a hive fleet to consume the worlds. The Imperium sent the Space Wolves to deal with it since the sector has gone quite far for far too long. Any quick tips to add Blood Angels, Elf Clowns, and Battle Sisters into the fray that has been going on? Oh, it's easy. Blood Angels and Battle Sisters can go and help the Imperium. Harlequins are always, you have to kind of think of like, why are they there? What are they messing with? Eldar are that in general. Dark Eldar not. So the Eldari and Harlequins, if they're showing up, there's probably something they're trying to manipulate to help themselves in the long run. So here's the easy one. There's a craft world that if the Tyranids consume this place, the craft world would be next in line. So you go with the traditional now, so they're trying to help out so the Tyranids are defeated so they don't eat the craft world. That's an easy one. Same thing with the Necrons, right? The Necrons are their ancient enemies, so they could easily show up to help to thwart that because they don't want the Necrons to return. So that's not too bad. So those are some quick suggestions. Also, are you guys interested in selling some of your Warm Hordes models since GW is your main bread and butter now? We have some. I don't know if we'd really want to go into the trouble of selling them all. Not because we might play War Machine again, but because the time to sell them might not be worth the money we'll make from it. And you never know, we might need them in the future. Right now, they are kind of collecting dust on a shelf in our back storage room though, so I don't know, we'll see. You never know. Don't like getting rid of minis unless I have to. Greg Miller, Matt, big fan of all the Mini Wargaming crew. Thanks for all the hard work. Thank you. I'm a big Age of Sigmar fan, particularly of narrative gaming. I'd even go as far as to say I don't enjoy tabletop gaming if it doesn't tell a story, and the game is just purely to determine a winner. I can somewhat agree with that. Ilaras Awakening is still my favorite show. It contained everything I enjoy about tabletop wargaming. Storytelling, world creation, games being played with beautiful models and great looking tables representing interesting factions. I agree, I did actually really like that one too. Their actions on the table really felt like they had consequences. We'd love to see another campaign in a similar style, perhaps even a continuation of the events in Illarath, adding new factions and characters. What are the chances you do something like that in the future? Totally. And I actually think that's what we're kind of doing right now. The Hungry Nexus is the kickoff, but these campaigns, like I know it's not Age of Sigmar, but if you check out the Hunting the Fallen campaign, I think you'll see some of that you're talking about there. Every mission has story. It's much more deeply narrative than the Hungry Nexus was, and so. But yeah, I'd love to go. I've been getting people saying, why aren't you doing Age of Sigmar campaigns? And we totally need to do them. We can't do them as often as 40K because they don't get as many views, but I totally want to keep doing them because I love the lore of Age of Sigmar and I love telling stories there. It's just always sad that they don't get as much attention, which means, it could have made a 40K and made more money. So we got to make sure we make enough 40K, and then we can get those Age of Sigmar ones in there to satisfy those players as well, because they deserve it too. Mandig, hey Matthew, I just finished with the Watchers in Death narrative campaign, season 1, for what feels like the 50th time. Really? Awesome. I love it, like all of your narrative campaigns, and may have created an Anvils of the Apotheosis character with the Shield of Severus. You mentioned the Forged Sentinels Stormhost in an episode, which Lord Arcana Matthias is from. Do you have a paint scheme in mind for them, or painted models? We don't have any painted models, but the original intent was that was just like our MacGuffin of putting the Sentinels of the Forge, which is our 40K Space Marine chapter, which is like the green and yellow, kind of our company colors. So there'd probably be a similar color scheme, just for fun. So, but we don't have any painted models, other than like what you saw there, but those ones are Watchers in Death, so they're repainted to a different color. So, but yeah, I like that one too. M. Wasserman, hi Matthew, is there any plan to add a scoreboard to the battle report, something similar to Tabletop Tactics? I think it would definitely make it easier to follow along. It wouldn't be incredibly hard to do. It would take some extra work though when we're making the battle report. But it's something I'll have to look at, for sure. Okay. The Danish Viking Alex. Hey Matt, before the pandemic, you guys were making changes in order to improve content. One of them, if I recall correctly, was to focus more on battle reports with content producer versus content producer. When the corona pandemic is over in the future and things hopefully get back to normal, will you then go back to playing against guests? Okay, so I've already answered this. Yeah, we will go back to having guests, but not all the time. Looking forward to see the continuation of the Custodes storyline from Hungry Nexus. Yeah. I would love also season 2 of Yagvir and Tor, of course. I was thinking I want to do Age of Sigmar Age of Sigmar role-playing game, the new Soulbound, and I want it to be Yagvir and Tor season 2, like switch formats to that. That's the best campaign you ever made. Happy board gaming, stay safe. It was a fun campaign, but you get Steve and Luke in the room together, and you're always going to get something good. Sabini, hi Matthew, wishing you all well. Which new codex do you want to come out next, Nids or Genestealers? And what major changes are you hoping to see? Well, I have to say Genestealers because they suck so bad, and Tyranids are okay. I want them both, obviously, but Genestealer cults more, mainly because I want all the Crusade rules for them, because that would be super awesome. What changes do I hope to see? Oh, golly. I don't know how to fix them except maybe drop their points. They're just so lackluster in every way now. I don't want them to mess too much with the cult ambush. I actually like the way it works. So as long as they keep some sort of flavorful cult ambush and don't just make it some unflavorable thing. Like I love the blip markers for deployment. I just love that. It's just so good. How do you fix them and make them playable? Well, easy answer is you drop points on a lot of stuff so you can bring more of them. That's the easy answer. You might have to do other tweaks because the meta right now is everything's multi-wound, so you got to find more ways to put multi-wound attacks on your guys. Yeah, so that's basically it. I can't think of many changes to their rules I would do because I like their rules. It's make better sub-faction choices. Like the Greater Good book that came out did so little for the Genestealer cults except for a few good stratagems. The whole build your own cult it was pretty much garbage in there. You might as well just take the ones that are in the Genestealer cults book. Whereas like the Tyranid one gave us a few good options there. So more flexibility there would be nice. So yeah, I like how everything kind of works. It's just it feels like you're always playing with 25% less points than your opponent. So, if you just drop their points, that could fix it, but that's a simple answer, and not always the right answer. And of course I want Tyranids to come out too, for the same reasons. I want the Crusade rules for them. Will we be seeing any more Blood Bowl leagues in the near future, or are they not putting enough views to be viable? Well, I talked about that kind of. We started one, and then got interrupted by the pandemic, and then I didn't really want to continue it, and it was so long before we did it that we just kind of dropped it. You probably will see more Blood Bowl leagues. I just don't know when. Tomps4991. Hi Matt, as I know you play your Nids a lot, have you ever tried playing High Fleet Gorgon? I know it only gives rerolls 1 to wound. Do you ever see yourself trying it out? trying it out, or is this the High Fleet not for you? The problem with Tyranids is they're not very good, and so you can't just play around with the High Fleets that aren't as good. I loved the fact that with the Sisters of Battle, I was able to play all 6 orders and have fun with all 6 of them. It's because the Sisters have some really solid stuff in them, and so if you're playing an order that's not as good, it's okay, because they're already good. Whereas the Tyranids, you have to really work hard to make them good. You can make them good, but it's like you have to only use a certain part of your codex. You got to ignore 75% of your units, and you've got to do the certain combos, the Exocrine Hive Guard, or the big blocks of Tyranid warriors, or the like Demacarons and Swarm Lord. There's a bunch of stuff in there, thankfully, but only because it's such a large and broad codex, with the Forge World stuff actually helping to support it pretty decently. But there's just so much in there that you can't touch either. So I'd love to be able to go through the High Fleets, but that would require the Tyranids being kind of at the same level as all the other 9th edition codexes. So that's kind of where I'm at there. So no, not currently the High Fleet for me. So now I've got to find all the questions I haven't answered. How much time do I have left? Ooh, I got about 5 more minutes. Jarl Dreadwolf. Hi, Matthew. I have a few questions for you. 1, have you guys ever tried or considered using the objective marker rings? Yeah, so those you're talking about, like instead of just the objective marker being a 40 mil marker, you put in a ring, and your models have to be overlapping that ring in order to be controlling the objective. It makes it very clear when a model is. We don't have any. Would we use them? Maybe. Our tables are pretty dense in terrain, so it can be hard to place the ring. So I wouldn't personally want to use them for that reason, but I can see their advantage. 2, how difficult would it be for you guys to add top-down images showing unit placement between each turn? You guys show the objectives and table layouts in a top-down view at the beginning of the game already, which I appreciate. It wouldn't be overly hard. I don't know if it fits the flow of how our battle reports go. Our battle reports are not as tactical, and they're more about the flow and fun of the game. That doesn't mean you can't show that stuff. See, I'm going to say something that's going to be totally lame. There's a lot of little things you could do that some people may appreciate in a battle report, and it's a very long list. And if we did them all, it would take us twice as long to film and more time to edit. That doesn't mean they're not a good idea, though. So it's just about figuring out which ones we like and which ones we care about. Like I said before, personality is the big part, so I know that adding those things, we're not going to see a difference in our views or vault signups. That doesn't mean it's not a good idea to do those. So it's just a matter of whether we feel like we need to do it or not. So your suggestion definitely kind of prompts that and makes me think about it, so I'll definitely keep thinking about that. 3, as M. Wasserman asked below, would it be possible to get a scoreboard? So yeah, same thing. So I already answered that as well. So good questions. They're all 3 of those are good suggestions for battle reports. They're all very good. And I don't want to just like hand wave them away, say, no, we're not going to do it for this reason. They're all good ideas. It's just a matter of what we care to implement, I guess is the answer. So I don't know if that's lame or not. Maybe it is. Orky Benji, Matt, thanks for all the years of wholesome, family-friendly entertainment. You're welcome. Thank you. Are there any rules or gameplay mechanics from previous editions of 40K that you miss or wish were re-implemented? Yes, I was just thinking of that the other day. Which is the one that I was thinking of? I missed the lack of mortal wounds. I'm not a fan of mortal wounds at all. I don't think they really add to the game. All they do is address the problem of too many invulnerable saves, which never used to be a big problem in 40K in earlier editions. Invulnerable saves were rare. They were on very powerful things. Terminators were very powerful, so they had the 5 of invulnerable, and that was a big deal. But there was still 1 wound back then too, so you fail it, you're gone. What do I miss? I miss more restrictions for what you're allowed to bring. I don't like the number of detachments that are available to everybody. Now, mind you, they've done a little better now because a lot of those attachments cost you command points, but a lot of them don't. And so I miss the combined arms attachment for your regular play, and then the Planet Strike had their own detachments, and Cities of Death had their own detachments. I like all that. I like to kind of force me to kind of think about what I'm going to do. I like the way Horus Heresy does it as well, where it's not just that you have to bring a certain number of troop choices, but some of your troop choices can't be brought as the mandatory troop choices. And so it really kind of makes things work a certain way. And I don't mind when I used to mind, but I don't mind so much anymore when that mold gets broken. Like, well, if you bring a Orc war boss on bike, now your bikes are troop choices. Because now they just basically do that by having the different kinds of detachments, right? So I like that. I know that it's not perfect to do it that way, because then you just like, well, okay, I'll just min out my 2 troop choices and then bring whatever the heck I want. And I get that. I get it's not a perfect system, but I do like that kind of restriction, kind of more. I also miss the lack of, like, I kind of wish command points weren't part of the game. They add a great depth to the game, but at the same time, it can be a little much for learning new games or learning new armies, but also for the length of the game that you're playing. There's a lot more to look up and kind of get right. So I kind of miss that simplicity. Ironically, as the game becomes simpler, it's also become more complicated. So those are a few things. I don't miss vehicle facings and all that stuff. While it's thematic, it was always a pain to figure out. I don't miss deep strike mishaps. I wish there wasn't any rerolls. Like, everybody's got rerolls now. It's just like, okay, everybody's got rerolls, that's fine, whatever. Get rid of them all, because now everybody has them. So if everybody got rid of them, then no big deal. Instead, like, stick to the whole, I'm the captain, so +1 to hit for you. Or you can use my leadership, or I can do something else. Yeah, because it used to be that, like, the characters would join a unit, and then they would kind of get some benefits from them joining the unit sometimes. So they wouldn't just get to re-roll hits or ones or something. There's just too many re-rolls, like roll and then re-roll your hit, and wound and re-roll the wound, and then I got to save, but then I got to feel the pain, which then I get to re-roll something here. There's just too many rolls. It makes things take too long. So that's what I miss. I think I'm out of time. I am. Let's see if I can grab one more. Here we are. Niagara 29. Last question. Matt, as much as I enjoy shifting metas to keep things interesting, I'm very concerned when COVID restrictions lift and I can start playing more consistently. I don't believe my 4 wound grot heroes are going to enjoy the shooting meta in AOS. How do you feel about shooting in AOS? Would charging a higher cost for shooting units help? Maybe implement lookout sir rules more similar to 40k? I like cool shooting artillery units, but it never feels great to have all my heroes sniped before they can be heroic. Really puts the gloom in Gloomspite. I agree. The AOS, it was better before they introduced all this shooting, and it's been slowly creeping in with more and more armies. It needs to be like, shooting units need to not be your battle line, or they need to, like, I don't care. The grot shooting can be battle line, sure, because they suck. So what? There's just too much good shooting. Which, yeah, the lookout sir rule was only a -1 to hit them when you're near a unit because there wasn't a lot of shooting, and so you're like, am I going to put it into that one guy that's -1 to hit? Maybe -2 with other things, but yeah, I think a lookout sir rule like 40k would be in order now, so your characters can't just be sniped, because especially with grots, like, it's just too easy to kill them. So I agree, that needs to be changed. And I just wish there was less shooting in the game. Like Lord of the Rings was one of the first games, and I enjoyed the fact that they restricted only one of the 3 units could be an archer, and so you could only have 1/3 of your army being shooting. But then there was a couple armies like the Rangers who broke that. Everybody had a bow, and they're incredibly powerful, because guess what? When you can pick your enemy off before they can get to you, you win the game. Who knew? Now, you can kind of mitigate that. Like, 40k is more of a shooting game, and you see that problem there, but it's also mitigated by the fact that, I don't know, the terrain rules maybe make better terrain rules for Age of Sigmar, so that they can block line of sight more often, or they can give some benefits more often, or minuses to hit more often. I don't know. I just don't like how much shooting there is. It's just too much shooting. I want close combat. That's what I want Age of Sigmar. It's mostly close combat with a few smatterings of arrows going around to soften things up before you charge in, of course. That's all the time I have today. Thank you so much for watching. Next week, don't forget, it's Josh and Cullen. You can leave your comments and questions for them in the comments below. Thanks again, and happy wargaming.